Here's Suzanne's question. She writes, I am totally wrecked about the election results. I know my entire birth family voted differently than I did. The only ones I have contact with are my mother and my little sister. I'm unable to talk with them right now. I know they want to talk with me on the phone. I'm lucky I don't live in the same state with them, so I don't have to see them on holidays. I think my question is this. When they push me to talk with them, how can I politely say no without going into the why? In the past, they get mad if I disagree with them and they say I need to respect their opinion. So, very briefly, Suzanne, what gets in the way of just saying, no, I'm not available right now?
So there's a history with, am the only one in the family who is crazy hippie liberal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the reason that I moved 3 states away.
Mm-hmm.
And I have shut off any of that kind of thing with the family because they gang up on me. And when you were in the beginning, in the intro part, you were talking about othering.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so othered and just is not ever safe to say anything because I just get yelled at and stopped. If I start to go, yeah, and then they're yelling at me, and it's like, okay, fine, we just don't talk about that. How's the weather, Mom? Who did you have lunch with yesterday? So,
One piece is the recognition that this is not an emotionally or psychologically safe environment. And you
correct.
want to protect yourself. And so when you're not wanting to engage in the conversation with them, you're honoring your own limits and your own desire for self-care. And it's a way of setting a boundary in terms of how I want to be dealt with. If you want me to be in engagement with you, I want to be treated in a particular way. And if I'm not going to get treated with respect and kindness, I don't want to engage with you. It sounds like you're feeling a little bit paralyzed and stuck. You have a desire to be in conversation and engagement with people that you love and that matter to you. And you also have a desire to protect yourself from being yelled at, criticized, judged, imposed upon. And you're unsure in this moment how to move between these competing desires inside of you. Is it something like that?
Yes, there is a dynamic in the family that there's a duty for me to stay in contact with them, and we don't really have anything in common, and I stay in contact with them because they're family.
Okay. Do you believe in the concept of duty? Does it map onto your own sense of values and your own belief system and for your own sense of integrity? Or is this concept of duty something that you're feeling trapped into because it's part of the belief system of a family and you're not
The
sure how to
latter.
detach from it?
Yes, the latter. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the duty doesn't feel inherent and intrinsic to you. It feels like something that you need to submit to.
Yes.
So I might invite you to question it and figure out a way to get more choice around duty in this case. You know, duty is a domination system concept. Duty is a power over concept designed to elicit compliance and obedience in order
Mm.
to continue to uphold a very particular kind of hierarchy.
Why this feels so bad.
Yes, probably is. So in domination systems, empathy goes down. And in systems where empathy goes down, rules go up. When we can't rely on human empathy, we replace that hold with lots of rules. And the more rules you have, the less empathy you have in a system. It's very interesting how these two things mutually inform one another. What we talk about on a call like this is how we cultivate natural giving and what inspired love and human connection looks like when it is intrinsic and freely given from an authentic place from inside of us. What most of us are living in are the historical remnants of domination systems that don't trust love and don't trust human connection and don't trust human goodness, and therefore have this unconscious belief, which is actually quite conscious, but also very unconscious for a lot of people, that in order to get what we want, in order to get love, in order to get connection, in order to get safety, in order to get our needs met, we have to make people suffer so that they behave like good people. And we do it through rules. And so the concept of duty is coming out of that system. But it doesn't actually work. You can't force someone to love you. You can't coerce somebody into caring about you. And so what it ends up doing is it kills off a lot of the natural giving, because human beings are self-sovereign and we want to be able to love freely from our hearts, not out of duty and obligation. And it sounds like this is a piece of what you're grappling with. Here you are in this family, and the on-the-ground experiences, the way that you're actually treated on the ground is with so much criticism, judgment, rejection, control, coercion, that you don't get the experience of being seen and known or loved in the way that would actually elicit more of a desire to be courageous or take a risk. So I'm going to pause there actually and just find out, how is that landing, hearing some of those ideas?
I'm feeling a little lighter in that maybe I can shift away from the duty side a little bit. I know that there's a codependent part of me that is going, yeah, but she's your mother. You have to talk to your mother. Well, not if she treats you like crap.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
And I've disengaged before because of other similar things where I'm trying to protect myself. And my siblings came at me, my cousins came at me. So it's, hold on a second. They all were like, you have to be part of the family. And why do I have to be part of the family?
So let's just dispel that. You certainly don't have to be part of the family. That's just not true. You don't have to be part of any group that injures you or harms you. You don't.
How can I be this age and not know that?
Because domination systems are very powerful at brainwashing us and keeping us afraid. And the psychological function of that kind of system is to get people to turn on themselves. And in that way, the system doesn't have to work so hard to oppress them, because people will oppress themselves out of fear. But I'm going to put just a different idea on the table, which is, it can live in me a little bit like, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to be a part of this family. I don't have to be in relationship with anybody that is actively hurting me or not considering my needs in the equation. But what I will tell you is that I want to love you. I want to be in engagement with you. I want to work things through with you. I actually want to be in relationship with you. But in order for me to do that in a way that is not an act of self-harm, I need to be treated in a particular way. I am not willing to put up with yelling and judgment and criticism, but I am absolutely willing to have an open and honest, curious conversation about what this has been like for each of us. I am absolutely willing to be in conversations that are about caring for one another and getting to know one another. If you want to have those conversations, I'm available. I'm not willing to be in conversations where we are judging, criticizing, coercing, and controlling one another. Some version of this, you can, for yourself, get clear on what kind of person you are. Sometimes in situations like this, when people are projecting onto us who they think we are, it is an invitation for us to get very clear on our own knowing of who we are, and to get very, very conscious of that, and to be able to communicate that. And we get to have boundaries around that. And I wrote something recently about your terms of engagement. You get to have terms of engagement. Listen, I am more than happy to be in conversation with anybody who wants to be in conversation with me. And I have certain standards and requirements. And if you are going to start attacking me, dismissing me, becoming contemptuous, speaking to me harshly and disrespectfully, I will bow out of that conversation, because my nervous system doesn't handle that well. And that's just an act of self-care for me. Now, I don't have to say, because you're a fucking asshole, right? That's me coming back with another act of aggression. So I'm going to hold that back, because I actually don't want more acts of aggression on the planet. So I'm going to work with myself to find ways of expressing my boundaries in ways that are not aggressive, right? And that's a practice, because I can be very aggressive. So I'm just going to say that is me keeping me on a leash, when I can run if I need to, right? I can fight if I need to. But I actually, personally, this is just me, I don't really want more of that consciousness or energy on the planet. And so the one person that I can manage and train is myself. So I'll take that piece on for me. I will work on making myself a safe person, knowing that I can't make anyone else a safe person, but I can certainly make myself a safe person.
That's one of the reasons that I don't want to talk with them on the phone, because I'll text with them but I don't want to talk with them on the phone because I don't trust what's going to come out of this mouth.
Yeah. So whether you say this to them or not, it sounds like part of what you're saying is one of the reasons I don't want to speak to you right now is because I'm protecting you from my aggression. And I am protecting myself from going into any kind of shame and self-doubt on the other end of that. So right now, I'm choosing to contain and work with my interiority until I get more self-regulation and clarity about what I do and don't want to say, because I need that to really be in integrity with who I want to be. And I don't trust myself right now to be able to do that. So I'm giving myself time and space to wait myself out and work with myself consciously and let all of those voices be heard and do some shadow work of my own and do some healing work of my own. And if and when I feel ready, I'll let you know. But I'm not right now. I think that's a very perfectly legitimate and very kind and very protective thing to say. Now, again, how much of that we actually say to other people or not, that's up to you based on the people and the circumstances. But that's a way you could be clear inside of you about what you're doing and not doing. How's this landing? What's coming up next for you?
This was, I think, what I needed to hear is that I have permission to stay quiet. I know that it upsets them. And I know that my entire upbringing, I was the one in the family who like kept everybody, shh, everybody keep everything, don't fight, don't fight, don't fight. And I was always in that position and I didn't like it. So I stepped away, but
So,
then playing it inside myself.
so are you saying that part of your role in the family is that you were the mediator, the peacemaker, you had needs for harmony and the reduction of conflict? And one of the things you've done to help care for yourself is to expose yourself to less and less of it, give yourself less and less contact with it. But what you're noticing now is that same conflict is still going on inside of you. Like, even though it's not coming from the outside and other people, it's living in you now. Is that what I'm hearing?
Because I feel their discomfort that I have cut off
Yeah.
communication. I would always call my mom on the way to work. And the reason I would do that is because there's an end to the call.
Mhm.
It's a safety mechanism for me.
Makes it nice and circumstantial. That's so easy. Yeah, it's perfect.
Right.
Not
As
personal.
soon as as soon as my car turns off, mom goes, "Oh, you're at work. I'll let you go." Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That sounds like a really brilliant piece of engineering on your behalf.
Thank you. But then she is like, "Well, how come you're not calling me on the way to work?" And I
Mm.
just told her I'm very internal right now. That's all I was able to say.
That sounds lovely. How did she respond to that?
She just said, "Okay." That was last Friday, and I haven't reached out to her.
Mhm.
And if I just don't reach out at all, I think they'll probably wonder. And I think I'm battling with the part that goes, "You should be reaching out to your mother."
Yes,
Death
yes. Well,
match.
there's some internal pressure going on. So let's unpack that just a little bit more. You could reach out to your mother, not you should. Like, just feel into what it's like to hold it as a could. I could reach out to my mother. And then the next two questions would be, what needs of mine get met if I reach out to my mother? And what needs of mine do not get met when I reach out to my mother? And surface some of that. My needs for emotional safety, for care, for being seen and known and respected for who I am, those are not well met. My needs for engagement perhaps are met. My needs for some kind of perhaps hope that things might get better. I don't know. Do you have a sense of what needs of yours do get met? Relief from internal pressure might be another need that gets met.
Relief from the duty, internal pressure of the duty, because really we don't talk about anything. We talk about, oh, what's the weather like in Michigan? Oh, what did you do today?
Uh,
Oh, what are you doing tomorrow?
yeah. So that's a little bit like, when I'm compliant with the rules of a domination system, it buys me some invisibility and some safety.
Exactly.
And sometimes I want a little bit of, I want to go incognito. I don't actually want to be known for where I'm really at. And so I might choose to engage and comply and be obedient because it allows me to become invisible in a system that isn't feeling safe. So it's a protection mechanism. What needs are not met by that?
By becoming invisible, by following along with the duty, needs to be seen,
Yep.
connection, but
Yep.
those weren't being met anyway.
Well, exactly. Yeah, they weren't being met anyway. So I think it can be very helpful to just understand we have all of these sort of bad choices, right? None of them at the moment are feeling very satisfying. There's no one choice that feels like, oh, this is going to release everything and meet all my needs. And to be examining of the choices that I have, none of which feel that great to me, which needs are met and unmet by each of them? What is the function of each choice? What does each choice mean in the big system of who I want to be in the world? And sometimes when we can make the choice from that place, we can have more inner peace around it, even if we wish that the conditions we were living in were different. You said something a little bit early on about permission. What do you give yourself permission? Which needs do you give yourself permission to meet? Because if you decide to engage with mom and you're doing it because you see how it meets your own needs, it shifts it a little bit from doing it only for other people to also being able to include yourself in why you're doing it. And that can help it feel different. Is that making sense what I'm pointing to there or not really?
I think so. I think I went to what happens if I don't follow the rules? Well, oh, we don't want to go there. So if I don't pretend to be part of the family, then I'm then an exile.
Yeah,
And
you are an exile. It's just that more people will know it than you. Let me suggest this. There's a book. Parker Palmer wrote a book called A Hidden Wholeness. And in that book, in A Hidden Wholeness, he writes very, very beautifully about the public self and the private self. So if anyone is struggling with any of this, like who am I in front of people and who am I in my heart of hearts, I highly recommend A Hidden Wholeness. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. So the reason we develop a public self, we comply, we follow the rules, we do what we're supposed to do, is that it keeps our external life somewhat stable and it keeps us safe from punishment that a domination system might want to extol to try and get people to behave in a way that everybody else in the little herd is behaving. And Brene Brown talks about the difference between belonging and fitting in, which is also important here. That is a version of fitting in. But the price of fitting in is disconnection from ourselves, disconnection from our authenticity. And fitting in is actually an exceedingly lonely experience because you do not feel like you belong, but you are fitting in, but you don't get the experience of belonging. And she talks about how belonging is the first person you need to belong to is yourself, right? And I think this is the piece of what you are working with in you right now is the sense of I can see the ways in which I live in this world and relate with this world very, very differently from my family of origin. My experiences are different, my values are different, the way I interpret and make meaning of things are different, the things that I believe and don't believe are different. The ways in which I'd like to be in relationship are different. I see difference, 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 difference. And when I try to express my individuality, I'm going to speak a little more archetypally, the tribe over here gets worried and afraid and tries to bring me back into the fold, which for me represents obedience and compliance. And it makes them feel better when I'm behaving like all of them. And I get a certain kind of ease when they are all feeling better. So I can find in me the part of me that is trained to look at their needs and meet their needs and help them feel better. But privately in me, it's not satisfying because I'm actually not being included in that circle of care in the way that I need to be included. So the dilemma is, the big conflict that I am now facing is if I'm going to authentically express who I am, and actually say the things that are real for me and invite people to see me and know me, the price of that with this tribe that I have grown up in and that I do feel some care and loyalty to is that they will likely judge, reject, and exile me. And that feels so painful and so threatening. I don't want that because actually I want them to know me and love me. But at the moment, they don't. They will only love and know the parts of me that are like them. So I'm going to sit for a while, and this is all of us. All of us at some point in our lives are going to sit for a while with this sense of, can I be who I really am? And will I still be loved? And the unfortunate answer to that question and the good news to that question is there will be people that will see you, know you, and love you. And there will be people that will reject you and judge you. And so the next question is, What makes that worth doing for me? And how do I develop the courage to do that? And is that a path that I want to take? Or do I want to choose to live a divided life and settle for fitting in because my safety needs are strong enough that I'm going to make that choice? And I'm not going to stand here and say that there's a good choice or a bad choice here. I'm just going to say, make it a conscious choice. Make it a conscious choice. Because when you're doing it from a place of deep self-awareness and choicefulness, it is a fundamentally different action than when we're not doing it out of choicefulness and consciousness. How's that landing?
I think it's giving me more clarity. I think I did spend a lot of my life just trying to fit in with them just for safety. But I've lived away from them. Well, I moved here in 83, so I've been away from them for that long, and I've kind of reframed, that's the wrong word, but I've sort of reframed myself after being here. I was able to let go of the part in the play that they were expecting me to play. Does that make sense? That what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
You disidentified with the role they put you in.
Right. Yeah. So and it took quite a while for them to not continually put me in that role. So every time I went back for a holiday or a family function, they would put me back in that role, and then they'd act like, oh, well, like you're changing the lines. You're not supposed to, that's not your line.
Yeah. Yeah. We want you to be predictable. And we want to keep projecting onto you who we need you to be. And we need you to keep taking on our projections and being who we need you to be to meet our needs.
So my defense then was to anytime they do that, I'd just go, okay. And now I'm so far down the okay, whatever role. I'm so far down that role that I don't know how to come back well enough to go, oh, that's not my value.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like where you are finding yourself right now is with a longing to express more of who you are and feeling all of these intense pressures to go back to what would make them comfortable and looking for the language that allows you to work at the edges of reclaiming some territory for you. And I'm imagining it sounds like things like exactly what you just said. Oh, yeah, I actually don't value that in the same way that you do. Oh, yeah, no, I see this differently than you do. You know, it doesn't have to be a long discussion and it doesn't have to be a long debate where we have to figure out who or what is right. It can be small little phrases that just get sprinkled into conversation that for you represent a step in the direction of being known for a difference and slowly onboarding everybody else, almost in an imperceptible way so they don't even notice it's happening. Small little things over time, you know? What the image that I have is like when you're trying to lure a wild animal to come a little bit closer and a little bit closer and a little bit closer, big movements are going to have it run away. And so it's like putting a treat just a little far away. So they have to come a little bit your way, but it's safe for them to come that way. And no one's going to pounce on them. And we're not going to have a big discussion that requires them to examine anything about their identity. But it's like habituating people to difference so the difference doesn't need to be so threatening. Very casually. Oh, yeah, yeah, I don't see it that way. Pass the butter, please. Right? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I know. I know you guys all believe that. I've really come to see that differently. Where are the grapes again? It's a very gentle way that isn't, we're going to draw lines in the sand, grab out our weapons and have it out. It's more like, I can coexist here around you and I can be really different. And you'll have a little moment of like, wait, what? What did she say? Oh, well, I'm going to let it go. Wait, what? Oh, well, I don't want to, and then what happens is we start, the space begins holding a little bit more difference and we start building the capacity and we start resourcing the space. Because remember, this is a developmental task in the humans, learning how to hold a difference, holding the tension between opposites without turning on each other. It's a muscle that we're developing. And we don't want to go so quick and so fast that we keep tearing muscles. We literally want to give it space just enough so that we're building a muscle. How's that landing, Suzanne?
This might be a weird question, but they can't control whether they're interested in building that muscle or not.
Right.
I can only control if I'm interested in building that muscle.
That's right. So let me say a couple words. I think I know where you're headed. The vast majority of humans on this planet have an intrinsic desire to grow, to learn, to evolve, to become more competent, to become more knowledgeable, to expand their capacities. It is an intrinsic desire, just like hunger and seeking out food is an intrinsic desire of every person on the planet. And I sometimes need to remind myself to trust in the intelligence of the life force energy moving through the beings, that I don't control it or coerce it, and I'm not in charge of it. But I want to create conditions in which I can support that intrinsic desire and recognize it. It may not look exactly the same from human to human. And when somebody is learning how to write a letter, it looks really different than somebody learning how to write a poem. And when somebody is learning how to put words together and write a sentence, it looks very different than when somebody is working on a complex novel. But regardless of where we are in the what we are doing with language journey, we are taking our next step. And I think it's really important to notice where every person in our lives is taking their next step and not throw our hands up in impatience that they should be at a different step. And then I want to create relational conditions in which whatever somebody's next step is, it's a safe place for them to take it. Because the last thing that I want to do is create so much fear and judgment in a space that people become rigid and fixed and afraid to learn or change and grow because they have too much shame or too much pride. So then the question becomes, who do I want to be? What do I want to bring? Can I trust that people are learning and growing, that we are actually much more malleable than we'd like to believe, that we're much more easily brainwashed than we like to believe, that we're much more susceptible to groupthink than we like to believe. And yet, the same thing in me, that inner voice that is sometimes asking, but wait a minute, is that true? Is that right? Wait, this is inconsistent. I believe that the vast majority of people on this planet have that same internal prompting, and I believe that there is intelligence to that. And a lot of this is getting out of the way of that intelligence doing what it needs to do. How's that landing?
Yeah, I think that's helping a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to digest there.
I'm taking from the interaction you and I have had is that it seems like there's a part of you wanting to find some way of saying to your family, I love you. I want to be in relationship with you. And at the moment, it's very, very painful for me. And I need some space and some time to resource myself. And you're not going to hear from me as much. And I just want you to know it's not a rejection of you and it's not personal. I don't know. Fill in what's true and not true. But I am needing something right now for me. I am needing gentleness. I am needing kindness. I am needing safety. If you have that to offer, you're welcome to contact me. If you don't, give me some time. I will be back. And buy yourself some time. You may or may not be back. That may take you 5 years. That may take you 3 days. We don't know yet. But you get to language out whatever the truth is for you. Some of that language might not be what is exactly true for you, but you get to language it in a way that invites other people to care for you with and reassure them that it's not an act of rejection, but it is an act of self-care. And again, if it is an act of rejection, then we can work with that. Then we authentically say, I absolutely reject what you stand for right now, and I can't be in relationship with it. And that is the truth of where I'm at. I still love you as human beings, but I need some time to get back there. Whatever the truth is what I would recommend saying. And really giving ourselves a lot of time and space to language it out in all the different ways so that we can find the words that we want to stand behind. How's that feeling?
Yeah, because I'm not rejecting them.
Yep.
There's a fear that they're going to reject me.
You could
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
could say that.
But it is mostly about safety,
Yes.
my safety and protecting them from my
Anger, aggression,
disgust.
disgust. I have some, let's just name that for a moment. I need to protect you right now from my contempt, my scorn, my disgust, and my aggression, because there's so much of that coming through me right now. And I am going to actually work with that in my interiority and harvest what is good from that and not just act it out on you.